that you want to do. So that's really the information I would have to add to the administrator's report. I don't know if the attorney has any further comments regarding the issue of the responsibility of the city, whether or not it's required to step in and address the issue.
I'd say there's two things here. How big a problem is it, and how big of an expense would it be to ameliorate? And I don't have answers to either of those.
Who's going to pay for it? Another one.
And I think another thing, when you look at this, if the city was in some form, participate or do something with this, I think the focus is Bergen Circle. If that's, where the water comes from, the focus is not the whole, because there could be water coming there from other areas that feed down into there. We don't know that. You haven't done any kind of study into that. And the city's responsibility, or I'm not saying that we have responsibility, but the city's focus could be Bergen Circle, and there's no storm sewer at Bergen Circle, and there never has been.
Correct.
That's a whole nother, big expense. I mean, a whole nother situation. But that's really, as you look at this, and I don't mean to say focus by saying the city's responsibility or not responsible. What I'm saying is whatever is looked at, Bergen Circle, I mean, that's where the public street is. And if there's water coming off the public street, I mean, that's what the focus would be. I don't think the focus, as I look at this, probably should be working on their private property or, their hill. I think it's more if something's coming off there. But again, that's never been, there's never been storm sewer. There was not storm sewer before they built. There's not storm sewer now. Wherever that comes into play, I don't know, but I'm just saying that that's what the...
Right. Really, if the city were to undertake a project, I mean, right now you had an existing condition that was out there before you reconstructed the street. And then you reconstructed the street, which essentially perpetuated that same situation where it's overland flow and it's coming off these two spillways. If the city were to undertake a project at this time, it would be to change how you're managing that water that comes off the public street. That's what the goal would be. It wouldn't be any larger in scope than that.
Yeah, and the issue really becomes is working in the city's usable right-of-way. And the city did that. And so I don't know the timing.
Can I ask you to repeat what you just said? I didn't hear it.
Okay, no, that's fine. The city's usual obligation is to and did what it had to do regarding the reconstruction of Bergen Street. And you need to work, any type of work that the city does has to be in a public right-of-way. You can't work in private lands. I mean, you don't have the authority to do that and to expend dollars to do things on private property. We just lack the authority. The legislature hasn't given that to the city to do. Now, and Joe was trying to touch on this, that from the standpoint of what you have here and what I've seen, at least initially in some very brief conversations, the city did a management of the water, which it's entitled to do, and once the water was managed in the Bergen Circle area, that's the end of that obligation. Where the water goes, you attempt to do it in certain areas, and that's what was done with the swales that were at least initially there, or the, what would you call them? Spillways that are on the circle. Now, I don't know when any of the other homes that I would say downstream or downflow were constructed, but that's what needs to be taken into account on private property, is where any drainage is, or if there's any other easements that are usable for swaling that or making that flow go in certain ways. If there are easements there, which I don't know if there are, certainly the city could assist, and that's what Joe and Mark were talking about before, that there's some things that may be there, but then it becomes a public improvement project if there's a utility or drainage utility area that can be used. If not, it can't be a public improvement project. We don't have anything that can be done to rectify that. The biggest issue is whether or not this would constitute a public improvement project. Certainly, you can work within anything on Bergen Circle, as Mark discussed. Whether or not you would start constructing a full-blown storm sewer system, you have to evaluate the costs and benefits there. And again, what Joe was explaining to me is the actual use that was on Bergen Circle before has been lessened than what was there initially. So the reconstruct actually took away some of the flow, and that was what was intended to be managed.
And another question that comes to mind is, what was the drainage situation before all of this construction was done? Where was the water that fell there going before these, the street and the homes were put in?
Well, and again, I don't know, the water law in Minnesota is basically that water has and follows its normal course, and that's where water can be dispensed. So that's why I say the management of it at Bergen Circle only gets it over to where it may have been flowing, and if that flow back in 1999 was allowed, it's still allowed now. Can you modify that? Sure, if there's a way to swale it. I don't know if there is, I don't know if it's cost effective, I don't know if you can do some drain tile or some type of storm sewer that would allow that to flow a certain different way. That may be possible, then it becomes a cost, then it becomes whether or not it can be a public improvement project.
And another thing too to keep in mind is that there's houses to the west of them that are causing drainage issues down that hill. So to say that it's all 100% street, 100% city is not correct from that standpoint either. And there may be other properties that are contributing to, you know, and that becomes a civil, private matter when one property drains into another.
Right.
But that's part of this scenario.
Yeah.
There's no two ways about it. There's a property to the west that I've also had contact with, and I know some of you on the council have. Just as I looked at this whole area here, and they did, to the south, they did do some remediation, some grading, berming, kinds of things like that many years ago, because the water came down that way too, at their own expense for whatever that's worth.
Gentlemen, any questions?
I'd like to hear some sort of an answer to one of your questions, and that is how bad the problem is. Can you go fishing there for several days after a rainstorm, or ankle deep, washing away your lawn?
Nice.
Okay.
Since the reconstruction in '99, standing on our property, which is 316, looking up to Bergen Circle, we could never see the pavement before. With the new construction, we can. And then the water before the new construction up there, we never had the water run off down there like it is now. It's 5 times worse. It's puddles. Mark has photos. You want to share the photos? No, the flooding. This is it. This is the water we get, and that's with 1.5 inches of rain all the time. It's eroding all the pine trees that we have on that property that goes down there. And we've addressed it. And those scuppers or whatever were purposely put in to divert the water onto other people's property. We have roof water, we have nature water, everything that's coming down to us. It comes across Paddock's backyard, it goes into my driveway, washes out the end of my driveway every rain. You can drive by there anytime there's more than 1.5 inches, you'll see the gravel's out in the street. And we had it paved at one time. But I don't think this is something any of you would like to have in your backyard. And you can't even get back there to mow after, for days. That is ankle deep or more. When it comes down there like that, it's deep.
And I don't think anybody disagrees that this is not a problem by any stretch and that it's not a good thing. I think the question is gonna become, to kind of focus here is, or I mean, but to try to get this to the bottom line, I guess in effect is it your contention that this is 100% city, nothing else is contributing to it? And because I guess what I'm getting at is you have houses up on the hill there that are contributing to this,
Mhm.
and that's not a city responsibility.
Right.
So, and that's one of the things to keep in mind here is this is kind of a collective.
Right.
It's not just one thing. And so that's just something to keep in mind as far as, and it, as far as the street goes, then if you're seeing a street that was a higher elevation, you're saying, then something was majorly screwed up.
Probably.
And in looking at that and Joe looking at that, I have to say I can't see that would be the case, that it would be this much higher. After, it should be lower, and there's no evidence to show based on the elevation that it would have been that much higher. That, just as an untrained, kind of eye would see that. Now, before that thing was reconstructed, Joe, the odds are there was one of two things. There was either no curb, which means that water would have come right over, or
Correct, it would have ran off everywhere.
they put surmountable curb on. They had surmountable before, and then they installed new surmountable, and again, the water came right over. The water comes off of that cul-de-sac and goes down that hill, regardless of those drainage ways being there. We've talked about this. The drainage ways were cleaned out, there was vegetation in them. Now, we've talked about the drainage ways could be sealed up again, so the water can't go down it, but my concern, and this is more Joe's purview, but just is the water's not gonna be controlled, and it's gonna go again all over the place, because after a certain level, which probably isn't that much, it comes right over that curb and right down that hill, regardless of those things being there. It still goes over that curb, because that's how it was designed, for good, bad, or otherwise. That's how they designed it, was so that, it might slow a
The
small
small
amount
curb,
down.
yeah, it's typically 4 inches. The old style small curb back, just kind of familiar with, would be about 4 inches high.
Yeah.
So if we were to physically come in and board up those two spillways, the water would pond down the street to a depth of about 4 inches, and then it would actually get over the top of the curbs and start to flow down the boulevard and still follow the same course it follows now. The problem would be, though, now you'd be ponding water on your public street, which number one is going to deteriorate your street and cost the city money in maintenance in the long term. But the bigger issue is that now it does cause a public safety hazard, because now you're creating a safety hazard on your public street. And if somebody, if it were, say like in the fall or the spring where that water was on the street and it froze and somebody was in an accident or slipped and was injured or whatever because of a condition we caused by not draining the street properly, now the city could be, liable for public safety by creating that hazard. So I wouldn't recommend plugging the spillways. I mean, the water needs to drain off the street. It did drain off the street. I mean, what I'm seeing, they show the plans show the existing profile of the old road. How the drainage, how the elevation of the road laid, and it all from about the corner, which is the bend in the road, it all drained towards the cul-de-sac. The old road did before it was reconstructed in '99. No, so it all came down to the cul-de-sac and left the road at the cul-de-sac. Now, I don't know if there were spillways there, I don't know if there were curbs there, but eventually it all went that way, went down the hill and found its natural course. The new road, as I said, was reduced in area a little bit, but the overall drainage pattern from that corner still drains down to the cul-de-sac, except now it's controlled with the curbs, and it discharges at those two spillways. Once it gets off the road, it's still, in theory, is following the same course as it followed before '99, which is
More concentrated.
yeah.
So Joe, I have a question, and I know that Judy had brought this up early on. Maybe not a question, but the question being the whole thing about cleaning those drainage ways out. When they had vegetation growing in them, do you think that water still went through those when it hit a certain level?
Oh, it certainly would, yeah.
Oh, yeah, but more dispersed. without those two scuppers in there, the water was more dispersely going over the hill. Now we have it dispersed
Well,
in two scuppers, which also their rain gutters are going out to Bergen Circle, so then it diverts that water also down onto us. And when they did 99 construction up there, they asked Bay Goldhammer, they asked us, and I don't know about Weenies, about putting a culvert in on that property right there. And it was a big old culvert with a grate and big stones. And we said no. We didn't want water pushed onto our property. And there should be, I would imagine, an engineer that had a blueprint that should be around with that culvert in it, because that's what they showed us. That can't be found, but there is one, and the neighbors can say that there was. So anyway, this is the new one now.
Was the city proposing the culvert, or was one of the people building the homes?
The city was.
I guess I
Oh,
apologize.
yes.
I apologize, I'm not
And they
familiar
never
with
changed
it.
it.
Well, okay, so here's the deal with that. We have not been able to find anything on that.
Well,
What
yeah.
we have now is the final plans from the 99 project, the as-built plans. We don't have, if there was a discussion on, or if they had brought up, Stantec, at that time Bonestro had brought up different options or things like that for project design. We don't, unfortunately, haven't been able to find anything like that.
But you have my word, you have the neighbor's word, and that doesn't mean anything?
No, it does mean something, but again, this goes back to where we're at now. And if you had that there, you would have had all that water coming down the hill.
But that's why they wanted the culvert in, is to purposely divert that down so it wouldn't go down the other Bergen Road, because there's no culverts. It was a cheap way for them to get by and save money by dumping it onto our property. And the only thing, put a drain field tile in out to the street to Kenyon Road. It's alleviated. I don't expect people to tear up the roads and everything, but this is ridiculous. And it washes, it's eroding. And I couldn't have anything. I couldn't have a playhouse back there if I wanted to.
Well, a couple of things. I'm not sure that the flow is more concentrated now than it was in 99. I don't know what the condition was before the road was built. I know it drained down to the cul-de-sac and left the cul-de-sac. Typically, when homes are built, you typically try to divert the drainage to flow down the lot lines. These two spillways are located at lot lines, so they're probably, in essence, trying to mimic what was there before 99. So I don't know if the flow is more concentrated now than it was. I know that the flow, from what I can tell, generally before 99, flowed down to the cul-de-sac and left. Now from there, it naturally is going to flow by gravity down the hill. Now it flows to the back of the cul-de-sac, gets to the two spillways, and leaves the cul-de-sac, and it flows down the hill. So in the grand scheme of things, the drainage pattern after 99 is similar to what it was before 99. And the surface area of the public street, which contributes to the public portion of that drainage, is smaller after 99 than it was before 99. So the city's contribution to that drainage is equal to or less. So the project didn't make the city's contribution to the drainage any worse. Now, there really is no, I'm not sure what the design might have been for a culvert. When I look out there, nothing, when I walk out there, I don't strike and say, oh, I could put a culvert in here that would alleviate the water. The water is still going to want to go down by gravity to the bottom of that hill. And whether it flows over the hill or whether it flows through a pipe and discharges at the bottom of the hill, it still would reach the bottom of the hill. So I don't know what the design might have been. But when I look at it now, the idea of the drain field, it may work, but the city has no land to do that.
But we have
The city to do a drain field, you'd have to acquire easement rights or acquire property somewhere in there to be able to drain the water out to it and get it into a drain field.
We're trying to say something.
There is no easement for this water right now. None. That's
Water doesn't
private
need
property.
That's correct.
That's private property.
Yeah, but water doesn't need an easement. In Minnesota, water flows where water flows.
But this is diverting it with the
But it
scuppers.
always was doing
No, it wasn't just
that.
concentrated.
But that's what you'll say. It always was going to flow
Come
down.
see what Mother Nature does. I mean, Hanky was up there, you can see where the pine needles are washed away every rain. Fred built a house up there, he had dug out up for a basement. He said, go up higher because the water's running this way. It's history, it's been there, and it's made it's worse.
See, Joe, just, we could talk about this all night, but the one thing I'm curious about, these curb cuts, is the curb cut there to the north lower than the curb cut to the south, so most of the water is going to the curb cut to the north, which goes directly behind the place. If the curb cut to the south was lower, it would kind of, I think the original intention was to kind of go between those two houses. It had the curb cut between 222 or 322 and 318. So is there something there that's been planted or built up so the water cannot go that way? I think maybe some investigation, and we, like I say, we talked about this all night, and I think we need more information and to see what's really been done. Why is the water going so much more that way instead of the way that I think they thought it kind of really was intended to go?
And to try and answer your question, the answer is I don't know. I mean, from the one plan sheet I've seen, I don't know, it doesn't indicate what the elevations of the two spillways are. We'd have to go out there, we'd have to survey, go all the way back to the high point, which is essentially the corner. Actually, we want to survey both curb lines coming down to see, you know, is one over the other, we'd have to shoot those two spillways and try and identify.
That's real simple to do. So if the one spillway is headed to the north there is lower, naturally that's going to take most of the water.
Yeah, okay. I got something to bring in on this. I was up there Sunday night and walked through her with it from the curb itself all the way down. And I also talked to another individual where the water flows towards the south. And that particular individual kind of got the indication that, hey, we're going to have problems. So he, because all of it is channeled down just like it's supposed to do, go between the houses. As of today, which I spoke to him, and a heavy rain, it will come within about a foot. He built a brim in there some time ago when this was being constructed. And that's how it channels the water down. So if we even changed it around, you know, the balance of the two flows, and right, his was lower or higher, we're moving the problem from one place to the other place, or creating both of them having problems. Now going back to her, we walked the whole thing, from the curb all the way down. We'll tell you this here, and I'm saying it the way I seen it, was it's a good waterway. Everything down there, it's like a fan and it flows out as it goes, and it heads towards the old railroad track, towards the north. Now, she's saying about her trees. I will agree with her. It's the roots that are showing on there. But I did not see any erosion, which you really say erosion. There is some buildings in there. I did not see any of those buildings having a problem. As a matter of fact, they were above. They were above because they anticipated the flow. So it goes away. So eventually it spreads itself out with it. An answer? No, I don't have it. But I think if we move some around from one, we take the problem away less here and create more over here. So the one to the south, I think I would personally let that.
Okay, when you say it goes to the old railroad bed, once it gets to the old railroad bed, is it capable of heading to the north then? Or is there a blockage back?
That I don't have the
It's
biggest
still,
idea. All it goes is down.
gully out,
Yeah.
So
at
I
that
mean,
point.
is there just, by just going in there and making more of a swale so the water can go into that gully?
Well, it's a dead-end property. It would pool quite a lot. I mean, if you directed it down to the north at the end of our property, and then there's that fountain fence, and then our property at Engelman's, Engelstead. But it's a deep, it's just a deep gully. I mean, you could get a car down the width of it, but it's
She's talking on the railroad bed.
the old
Yeah,
railroad
The
bed.
railroad bed. The rest of it is pretty
It's
level.
not flat.
Pretty level.
can you get this water to go to that gully?
Well, yes, you could,
With a tile line.
but it's gonna be an expense. You're gonna have to literally start up at the curb and channel it all the way. So you've got
No,
300 feet
More.
that you'd have to actually do this with.
where this ponding is, how far away is that from the old railroad there? This pond right here.
Well,
I don't know. if it's
that's
shown Right
what
in front
she's
of-
showing me there, and that is the curb line up there, and that's the water coming down. There's quite a few pictures in here of it, and like she says, it'd be at least 300 feet.
Do you have the other
You'd
pictures?
have to,
Not up here, I
I
just,
mean, it's pretty tough to kind of picture this.
copies of all
because
here.
that
I've got them, but I didn't put them on.
I'll show you, Fred, where that would be. Okay, this is back with babies, it's coming down. A lot of the trees. This is looking, towards the south from that swell where we have that water going in. This is going
I'm,
south.
I'm kind of concerned about, I mean, this is normal.
Okay, but yeah, I'm getting there. This is the one. Where's the one? It's not in here, but I do have a picture of it where it looks north on our property, where it just lays out there, and it's just the mud hole. But I do have it on my phone, I can show you a video.
I guess I just, hard to picture.
that's why you gotta really go out there. I looked at it, and I really wanted to know what it was about. So it's well worth the walk to get a good vision of it. But it's pretty level, I mean, it flows down, but the surface of the area all the way around is pretty smooth. There isn't any gullies or anything of that sort in it. It just literally flows away, and it goes into this ditch, or I mean into the old railroad track area, so. But I would say this year, if you work to take care of that particular situation, and what about these other individuals that have already spent their money at building up the berm so that the water doesn't come into theirs? We're kind of opening up a can of worms.
The only thing is, if I build a berm, what good would it do with the elevation of my property compared to the other neighbors on the south? It does me absolutely no good.
And I agree with you.
And why should I go to that expense when they screwed up Bergen Circle?
So, you know, you've got, what we talked about options are either, depending on, would be to get more information from Joe to answer a couple of some of the questions that have come back. If you want to look further at this, you know, from that to actually trying to do more of a formalized study. And I think we've done some of the items that would be involved in the study. But I mean, you know, that option is there. And then if there's drainage, you know, that's a real dicey thing is how that would be handled. Like I said before, the city's end of this comes more at Bergen Circle. If, and again, you had a street that didn't have storm sewer before, was reconstructed, wasn't put in again. If the contention is it should have been put in, I mean, you know, that was 20-some years ago. And that could be one of your contentions is that it should have had storm sewer put in at that time.
Well, because they originally planned the culvert, so we
Right.
said, no, they should have done storm sewer, and they didn't.
So that's part of your focus on your, like when I talked to you guys before, is you kind of put your eggs in a basket of, okay, what are things that, you know, we're involved with as a city, and what are the things that are privately impacted, like those homes? And those are the things that we could talk all day about, us taking care of them, but we won't and we can't, because that's not our thing. So that's part of this. But again, this comes back to this really comes back, there's, you know, to whatever would happen back then. And, you know, you asked if we believe you or don't believe you. It's not a question of that. When you talk about what the city, you know, said they could propose to do, if we don't have it in front of us, we've come here 20 years later, we have nothing to react to. So we can't just go by if you tell us, or even if one of the council says, you know, I can't go by that as a material thing. What I can do is try to find a material thing like that.
Yeah.
But what we go by is the finished product. And, you know, Joe, I don't know if there's any other way to put that, but I mean, there could have been things that were talked about. There are meetings, and who knows? But again, unless we can find some proof of it. But even if we do, it wasn't done, and it's 20 years later, so I don't know, I'm not sure how that's gonna come into play now. Because the claims now, at least have come now, you know, if you started a claim 20 years ago
Oh, yeah, it's been ongoing since.
and documented and came and said, we still, you know, we started this 20 years ago, but what we have now is, it's come to us now 20 years later, or more, since 99. And that's not saying that there may not be a problem, but what it's saying is, if you'd have come right away back then, and it was documented, then you would have said, I've been fighting this for this many years. And all we have is, since I've talked to you guys in the last, you know, 9 months or whatever the period of time is, what we've been able to find now. So it makes it harder to try to figure out, you know, what might have happened back then, because we just have how that street was finished. But the city's property right away is at Bergen Circle. And so that's what, if there was any discussion of any alteration, it would be that road. I don't even think we'd want to get involved with the hill or the property at the bottom of the hill. Is there anything that can be done on the surface to change the drainage that's not going to cause a safety issue, denigrate the road in a rapid fashion, stuff like that? And then secondly, is there a longer term thing that could be done, or should be done, is probably the way to put it. And that's really where I think the city's focus would be. It wouldn't be on the bottom, because again, there could be drainage coming from other places. There is from those houses.
Yes.
And so we would need to look at that cul-de-sac,
My thought and
if anything's looked at.
thought, you know, if they could put like a filled drain tile and with an easement, if you need to be, from that swell and then down along our property lines out to Kenyon Road. Because actually there's no place for that water to go north. Because it goes flat and then it goes down. And I don't know who owns that right now. But that to me would be the simplest and easiest thing to do. I mean, farmers put that stuff in all the time and it seems to work for them. So I would appreciate if any of you guys wanted to come up and look at it. You know, when it's raining, come on up.
And like I said,
Anytime
I
an
think
inch and a half, you'll see it.
there's no question that there's a lot of water down there. No
Yeah.
question at all. And we've seen it, and it's
And we really, and I don't mean to, I don't want to say this the wrong way, but boiling it down to its essence is, there's a certain amount of runoff that comes off the city street. We could try and do something different to manage it as it leaves the street, but if we were to go in and put a drain tile at the bottom of the hill, now at that point, we're trying to manage not only what's coming off the city streets, but also what's coming off all the roads
that's what
and
I'm
all the
talking
other
about.
yards. So now we're getting into managing way more than just what's coming off of Bergen Circle. Yeah, and I don't mean to sound the wrong way, but I haven't heard that there's been any physical property damage, flooding of the homes or the garages or the sheds that are out
The
there.
neighbors behind us to the east, they were flooded last summer with water.
Okay, but now they're neither of the ones that, they're neither new
They're-
you,
and
nor your neighbor
but
that,
water that runs down from the circle, goes down across my northeast in the valley.
okay. But when I came out there and met with you and Mark on site, and your other neighbor was there, that's neither of you that you're referring to. That's
No.
different, that'd be further.
Right.
Okay. And I don't mean to, when I use the word nuisance drainage, that's like a term of drainage where it's when you get water that puddles, that gets to be, ankle deep, where after a rainstorm, you go out there and there's water that's 2-3 inches deep, and it might sit there for 48, 72 hours, and then even for another 48, 72 hours, it might be mushy when you walk on it. That's a nuisance drainage problem. Now, private property owners can certainly undertake any improvements they want on their own property to try and reroute the water, to direct it in other fashions, without stopping it, but to improve that situation on their property. It's not necessarily the city's responsibility to do that.
Unless what they are doing is charged onto someone else's property.
Right, you
That's
still-
been impacting before.
Right, the water still has to, as the attorney has indicated, the water has to have the right to flow. The city has to have the right to drain its public street, and the water has to be managed as it goes down the line. So the question is the city improperly managing its water as it leaves Bergen Circle? From what I've seen and heard, at this point, I haven't seen any evidence that it is mismanaging it.
Well,
I'm not sure, there is no, there is no storm sewer up there, so there is no city storm sewer where you could easily put a structure in and connect to a pipe to get an underground system. The drain tile system it'd be very difficult, if not impossible, to install in the right of way. There are underground systems that you can, underground tanks that you can use to retain storm water and release it at a slower rate. Now that's something we could put under the actual cul-de-sac, which would, dig up the cul-de-sac and put an underground storage tank to try and collect that water, hold it, and release it at a, so modify but we aren't going to change the area that's draining there, because the lay of the land is the lay of the land. The homes that are there, the front yards that are there, the streets that's there. So we're really not going to be able to change the water that's coming from the public street. And it's trying to get from where it is at the elevation of Bergen Circle to the lower elevation. So
Another way to look at this is from your standpoint, Connie, is a claim against the city. Because many times there are situations where incidents or things happen, and people, the only answer we can give people is that you have to file a claim against us. And that is certainly, with anything, you've always got that option, but that's certainly an option that you and the other property owners could take, is if you don't get satisfaction from this, is to file a claim, against the city's insurance and say that, what's gone on, and go that route. So regardless of what happens, you still always have that to fall back on.
right, and there was at one time, and I don't know if anybody remembers this, the fire department drains their hydrants every year. Well, they were draining it right down that swell. And I had new grass seed planted down there and a doghouse, and it washed it all away. And the city did compromise and, took care of that. So that's telling you right there and then, with that excessive water, rainwater, coming down there, what Mother Nature does. And it's excessive. It's not just, when it's just diverted. And it's the elevation, another engineer looked at that and he said it's slanted towards you guys, no doubt.
Oh, certainly, the street drains towards Bergen Circle.
It drains
But
down, it drains
But
east.
it did before as well.
But that's,
No.
see, that's not the question is which way that water drains, because that water is always drained down that hill, and when that street was first put in, the water drained down that hill in some fashion. So that part of it isn't anything that's,
Yeah.
you could contest. I think what you're saying is after 99 it was worse.
Yes.
But to say that it drains that direction, well, yeah, it's always drained that direction. It probably drained that direction before a street was ever put in there.
It's, like I said, it's more directed
But that's not the,
and concentrated. It is what we see from it, not what the blueprint says, but it's what we see and what we have that tells us that. So I just think, look at it a little bit and see what you can come up with.
Well, the prints after the latest construction is what is there. It's not, calculation, it's what's there.
Yeah, certainly, you know, we can have a surveyor go out there and take a bunch of shots to try and verify that what the print shows is there, but, I mean, in general terms, I believe the print is correct. I mean, I believe that the general drainage pattern was there before 99 with the old street and is still there now with the new street. So,
And when we talk about liability, though, again, you've also got those two houses up there above your hill,
Yes.
that water comes off of them and goes down also. So that's
Especially-
part of the whole scenario, when you talk about a claim, that's part of it too. I'm not saying that there's a verifiable claim or not claim, but I'm just saying when you talk about potential action, those are the properties water's coming off of.
Oh, like especially, oh yeah, because their rain gardens
So that's
are
part
going
of
that way, so it's,
the drainage
that's
coming down the
much more
hill.
concentrated in, with the elevation the way it is. So I never really complained, I never complained before until after that was redone.
Connie, yours is the house that's the front, you've got the long driveway, yours is the house that's the front.
Mhm.
When was your house constructed?
We moved in 91.
Okay. Did you build new or was it already there before?
We built new, so, you know, we knew, you know, what the layout of the land was, but we never had an issue with water like that back then. And you can ask the past neighbors up there what it was like. 'Cause it just didn't, and we didn't. I don't know why, but it didn't happen until after the new construction.
Okay, thank you.
How many houses were there up there in 99 at that time when this was reconstructed?
There's been no new houses put up in Bergen
Were these
Circle.
all there in 99, all of these that we show in this picture?
Yes. There's been no land change alterations to the landscape, none.
And if that's the case, that nothing has been changed except the street, and the street is not higher now than it was before,
So,
what has made a change? He says she can see it now that couldn't before. Something's not making sense here.
I have a
Right.
video of it
I
later on, I
think-
can show you guys on my phone.
Well, I think that goes back to, I think, you know, everybody realizes that there's a lot of water coming down and there's a lot of water
But you can see the
ponding.
direction of it on the video more.
Mark, do you have a plan sheet in the packet? Can you bring it up on the screen?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
For the street?
Yep, right there.
Can you rotate it? Because we're on sideways.
Yes, I believe I can.
Okay, so what this is showing, this dash line here is the elevation of the old roadway. So you can see there was the high point of the old roadway, which essentially was at the corner. And you can see the old roadway drained down like this, in the dash line, follow the dash line. And this is where the road ends, so then it comes along and it comes down the hill, and it keeps going. I think there's probably even more off the screen we can't see. Each one of these grids is 5 foot in elevation. I know the plan that I've got, it actually shows it farther. There's at least 20 feet of elevation drop from about here till it gets down to the bottom of the hill. Now this heavy black line is the grade of the new road that was designed. So you can see they lowered the road when you first came in off Kenyon. But here's the high point of the new road. So it's essentially right in line with the high point of the old road. And you can see the road got lowered here, essentially matches the elevation of the old road here all the way back to the end. So the old road, didn't drain this way before, and the drainage was reversed with the project. the area of the road that drained before was from here to here. The area of the road that drained after the project is from here to here. And then nothing was changed from the back of the cul-de-sac out. So that, I mean, in essence, that's what the plan sheet shows us.
So can you show me exactly with that elevation where my property, our property would be?
Your property would be somewhere over about here. And this would be right about where the road, when you come in off of Kenyon Road and the road takes the 90-degree bend to the right, that would be right about here. So this would be going out towards Kenyon Road. This would be going back towards the
You
cul-de-sac.
mean Bergen Road?
Yeah.
No,
Or Bergen, is it Bergen Road or Bergen
Bergen.
Circle?
Well-
Bergen Street.
Bergen Street.
Bergen Circle.
Because the top is the circle, and that would be the Bergen Street or road.
Could be Bergen Circle.
all right, if you scroll up, Mark, so we can see the overview of the top. Keep scrolling. Oh, you didn't put that part in. Okay.
We just
Well,
got-
I've got the whole plan sheet here, and these, if you scroll down just a little bit, you can see these numbers down at the bottom, 0 + 0, 1 + 0, 2 + 0. That's the stationing along the roadway. That represents footage along your roadway. So from the start, 100 feet, 200 feet, 300 feet, 400 feet, and so on. And the plan that I'm looking at, the corner, about where the 90-degree bend is in the road, so if you change from Bergen Road to Bergen Circle, I mean, I think before it used to be more of a right angle, like it was almost like a street intersection, whereas after the construction it turned into more of a smooth curve. Anyways, that's at about station, probably right about in here, about 3 + 50. So between 3 and 4. So from this way it goes back down Bergen Road till you get to 0, and 0 is at Kenyon Road. So this goes all the way from Kenyon Road up to the bend and then to the back of the cul-de-sac. So this is all the way up to Kenyon Road.
I bet there's not that much water that goes down that, as it looks like it would on this diagram. I bet you anything it doesn't. It may look like it there, but I can't imagine.
Well, I
You
mean,
know, that's one thing you can count on, is water flows downhill, and you're not gonna
Yeah.
change that, no matter what you do.
Not the amount that you would think with this. I think it gets more concentrated with it going east.
Well, I think even if 90% of that water goes the other direction, that doesn't alleviate the amount of water you guys are getting. It's still a lot of water.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't think that part of it is even worth, saying that, well, there's a lot more water coming. I mean, I think the amount of water coming down is what the problem is, whatever that is. And most of it's going the other direction, but what is coming down your hill is still causing all that ponding.
Right.
Well, maybe to look at it, maybe a surveyor should probably go and look at it. It would answer some of the questions that we have on both parties for the council and for.
See if the elevation is the same as
That's
what's
correct.
shown. Okay.
Get a little bit of a plan on it and see where it slides.
Yes.
And go forth with this somewhere into the future. Looking at it, we'd have a better idea than we do at the moment.
maybe we can certainly get a surveyor out there. And what we do is we'd go back and we'd find the high point in the roadway. And then we'd start from there and we'd go down towards the cul-de-sac. And we'd shoot the curb lines. We'd essentially cross-section the roadway so we'd have a view of what the road looks like from the high point draining back towards the cul-de-sac. And we could actually go up and take shots in the, on the driveways in the front yards too to identify those yards that are draining down towards the road. I mean, it certainly,
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is there a way to kind of rephrase that, at least for my own benefit, not being a professional engineer, is can you look at that water coming off that street and say, okay, this percentage is going in this drainage way, this is going in this drainage way, and then what percentage theoretically, because of the impervious surface, will be coming off those two lots, off the roofs and that kind of stuff? Is there a way to quantify you know, X amounts coming off the cul-de-sac and X amounts coming from those properties. Is there a way to quantify that? 'Cause that would go a long ways towards saying, well, how much is coming down that hill?
I mean, we could try to make a representation of the contributing areas. And keep in mind what gets in the cul-de-sac too is when you go back, you know, the homes that are coming back up from the
Yeah.
cul-de-sac,
Yeah.
their driveways drain to the
Yeah.
street.
Yeah.
So the drainage from your driveway comes into the street and winds up
Right.
becoming part of the street drainage. So, you know, we can certainly try to identify based on where the roof lines are, where, you know, where the yards are sloping towards the street. We can try to identify that water's coming to the street and then what area would go to that north curb cut, what area would go to the south curb cut, and what areas would drain away from the street. So, yeah, I mean, we could put together a kind of an overview map with those areas laid out. And we could document the elevations of the street, verify that the high point is where the plan says the high point is.
Yeah, that would just
And we
give
could-
us some
That would
clarification.
be useful to know
Mhm.
exactly what there is there.
What the impervious surface is.
I'm just thinking one step ahead, when we get through all that, if we come back to the same result, we still got the same question we're dealing with.
Probably.
But
Well,
at least then you got some
may have the
clarification.
same issue, but we'll have more information about
Yeah, and you'll have more
what's
confidence,
the existing.
you'll have more confidence in what the existing situation is.
To help quantify where the drainage is coming from, you know, to properties and the street and that kind of stuff.
I can certainly see about, you know, getting one of our surveyors out there. I'm not sure what their schedules are right now, with construction going on, a lot of them are,
Right.
have, you know, need to be at the construction sites at certain places, but if we find someone, you know, get a surveyor scheduled to come over, get those shots taken, get a map put together.
Right.
I mean, I would think we could have it ready for the next council meeting.
Good. That would be good.
Thank you.
Moving on. Item D here, forfeited property, property ID number 66-160-0216. Property has come up for tax forfeiture, we could acquire it, have no.
If there's a public use for it.
Have no use in mind for it at the time.
My recommendation with this would be to take no action at this time and just let this go to auction. Because I don't, in looking at this, we don't see public use potential for this property at this point. It's up on the map.
In which case, we need no motion or anything.
You can, but you don't need to, I think most cities just don't take any action and then it'll just automatically by default, it'll go to auction.
Do you know how much back taxes are on?
What's the point of that?
There it is.
You don't get, you get it for nothing.
We acquire it, that's immaterial. If it goes up for auction, it's actually immaterial also. It's
I'll
no longer a
take a look and see
situation
if I
where you
can bring it up
pay
here.
the back taxes and acquire property. You know, it doesn't work that way.
No, I was just curious what it was, that's all.
But it's
We
offered.
can look it up on the county website.
It's offered, I'm gonna do it right now, it's offered to the city, or any city, you know, they always have to go through this, as part of the state statute, that it's offered, if we have we have to have a demonstrable public use for it, like the lots up in Trunnion, where the
Yeah.
park is,
Yeah,
the public use was that we were gonna put a park in there.
yeah. I agree.
So that's what, this has come through here, but I'll try to take a look here and see if I can.
If you go to the county website, online property tax information, put in that property ID number, and you'll have all the,
I thought maybe it was.
I should help.
We have it right here.
means
It's okay,
nothing,
just
means
keep,
nothing to us.
keep going ahead, out. Curiosity is all it was, what it
Yeah, I'll
was,
sign it.
the value of the land.
Okay. Well, and that taxes have nothing to do with the value
Well, based upon value.
and how many years it's been.
Well, that's true, that's why I was going back to find out what there was.
Oh, let's move on. Item 6, or item C rather. Digital speed limit and pedestrian crosswalk signs.
We've had some discussion, the Chief Lee and I have had some discussion about actually two different fronts here. One of them is digital speed limit signs. We've had requests at a couple different points from residents for digital speed limit signs. And then the second one is the crosswalk signs. And so what we did is we met with TAPCO, which is a big supplier of these kind of signs, and I have some information in the packet, but basically, I guess the first thing on the, not the priority list, but just in the requests that we've had were the digital speed limit signs. Those signs are approximately $2,200. The solar powered signs, and you have that, some of that information in your packet. They're powered by lithium-ion batteries. Joe, does that sound right?
Yeah.
The solar cells power lithium-ion batteries, and they're supposed to be able to go for 30 days. And generally, they don't really need to be recharged, but they can be manually recharged. As far as the speed limit, those crosswalk signs go, and we talked to MnDOT about both types of signs. And MnDOT, before, just until the last couple of years, I think, Joe, maybe you know more about this, but they would require that they put the signs in, and now their policy is that they will not put the signs in, and they will let local jurisdictions put the signs in, but the local jurisdictions have to pay for the signs. MnDOT has to approve the placement, the sign design, all that stuff. So they will let cities put them in, but cities have to pay for them. MnDOT won't do any cost sharing unless it's some, situation, they can, but normally they won't do that anymore. So the bottom line is the cost is about $2,200 for the speed limit signs and the crosswalk signs. To get 2 crosswalk signs, and they have to be ones that are activated by people crossing the street where they flash, are probably about $8,500 to $9,000 for 2 signs and all of the other support stuff that goes in. So they won't allow just flashing crosswalks. They will only allow now, if they're put in by a city or county, they'll only allow ones that it's like a crosswalk and you push a button and then they flash, and their preference is LED. You can also get ones that are just 2 bulbs, you used to see the flashing bulbs, but those aren't, I would not recommend
No.
that direction, Joe, and I don't think we talked about it.
No, we use, they call it the rapid reflectorized flashing beacon,
There you go.
RRFBs. And we've used a handful of them here and there. They're pretty, from what we've seen and what we've heard feedback, they're pretty successful. They're primarily for where you've got a crosswalk where a driver wouldn't expect to have a crosswalk, like a mid-block, like down by Schweik's Hotel, where that crosswalk's in, it's not at any of the intersections, it's kind of in the mid-block, there's a crossing there. That would be an example where you put one of these in and a pedestrian that comes up to cross, you hit the button, and on both curb lines, these yellow beacons would start flashing very rapidly, similar to what like emergency vehicle types of beacons would flash. And so a driver coming along would see that flashing, they'd slow down because they'd realize there's something going on there and there would be a person crossing the road. And then, once the person crosses the road, after a certain amount of time, those beacons would shut off, and they'd stay off again until somebody come up and press the button to activate them again. So they're good for that type of situation where a crosswalk where a driver doesn't expect to encounter pedestrians crossing the road. So such as down by Schweik's, or if you've got a crosswalk like that near a school where you've got a mid-block crossing. They're useful in those types of applications as well. From what we've seen, they're fairly successful.
Are we really seriously thinking about this?
Pardon?
Are we really seriously thinking about this? Okay.
Well, that's why we're bringing the idea up, right? We're bringing this up now.
I mean, I see people crossing and they haven't got the patience to wait for a light to start flashing.